Hey my friend, it's Duke Chen, founder of Developers Academy and creator of Total iOS Blueprint. Welcome to lesson number 3 of our Own Things UITableView series. In this course, in this lesson, we are going to talk about the basic UITableView and UITableViewController. In just a moment, when we go into the demo, I'm going to have my iPad there and we're going to draw things for you. We will explain everything about Tableview and TableViewController for you. So if you're just starting new, this is okay. I will explain every concept of the way for you. I will take it slowly, we'll take each step of the way, and then we'll accelerate, we'll build up from there. So I hope that you enjoyed this lesson. Let's go ahead into the demo. Download your resources and own the starter project below this video by clicking the button or clicking the link on this page. If you haven't, let's do it. Let's go into the demo. Awesome. Burst out your last project, Xcode project that we are working on, and let's get started. So I'm going to, and by the way, this is the complete project after we're done with this course, right? So all of these things could be like this, and we access our details screen, and we can even access the camera because I'm using the simulator so that we can only see our photos album. Cool. So let's me open up the whole screen like this. Then let's go into our main.storyboard. Okay, now I don't want to use this view controller scene, so let's delete this guy like that. And then because notice that we want to have a table view, so let's drag out from the object palette. You will see that there is a table view controller like this. So drag out a table view controller to the screen and boom. See that we have like kind of like a table view, right? And now because we want to have a navigation bar, so let's embed this table view controller on a navigation bar controller. So editor, and then we have embed in navigation controller, and boom, we have that guy. Pretty cool, huh? Now let's make this navigation controller to be our initial view controller. So you see over here the attributes inspector, we have the view controllers, and then the is initial view controller, and we have this arrow thingy. Okay. Now our job right now next is we have to create a subclass for this tail view controller. But before we do that, I want to talk about some of the new concept in TableView that is going to help you a lot in understanding TableView controller even before we go and implement our code. So let's head over my iPad screen I have for you over here. Alright, so I have my fancy iPad screen over here with something I can draw on and help you to understand about TableView. So let me have it here. So TableView. Okay, so for example, this is the app that we want to do. Oh, by the way, some of you asked me what is the app that I use to draw on and teach here. It is an app on iPad called Paper, like this. Okay, so I use that app on the iPad Pro with Apple Pencil. Now, for example, let's say I have this tail view right here. This tail view, this whole tail view thing is just like our tail view on the screen like this. Right? So let's talk about some of the concepts in TableView controller and in TableView. Number one is the class of this TableView is UITableView. Okay, UITableView. And because this TableView, it has some of the things that we have to set it up in order for it to work. Apple very smartly implement for us a controller called UITableViewController like this. I know my handwriting on the iPad sucks. So it is a table view controller. Okay, just so you know. And then now we have inside a table view. Let's talk about this table view thing. Inside the table view, we have different objects or different concepts. Number one is each of this thing right here is called a row. This thing is called a row, or in other words, we can call that a cell. Okay, we can call that a cell or a row. Let's call this here a cell or a row. Let me have some eraser. Awesome. Cool. So we have a cell or a row, and the next thing is we have different section. So this thing is each of these is a cell, and then we have each of these is a section. This is a section, right? So remember the table view here, right? The table view, it has into a section, right? An array of like sections, and then each of the section here will have an array of row or cells. Okay, now let's talk about another concept called index path. This is an object that will tell us the exact location of a cell inside your table view. So for example, the index path is inside the table view is divided into the section, which is int, and then the row, which is also an int. So let me delete some of these things out. So then we have some space to work on. Okay, erase. All right. And here we go. So we have the section and we have the rows. All of these two is an integer. Now, the index path, the index of the section will begin from 0 to 1, and then 2, and then 3 below there. Okay, so just like an array, in fact, it is an array. So the index is starting from 0, 1, and 2. And then the index of the row inside each section will also starting from 0 to 1. And then, because it is a new section right here, then it start again from 0 to 1 and 2. If it is a new section, we have 0 and 1 and 2 like that. Okay, that's why for each of the row here, we have two information to tell us the index path of the row inside the table view. For example, this guy, the index path of this first cell is 0, 0. You see this? The 0 here is the section. The 0 here is the section. The 0 here is the row. And then here is 0, 1. This here is, no, it is not 0, but it is 1, 0, right? Because the section here is 1, and then the row here is 0. And then we have here is 1, 1, because the section is 1, and then the row is 1. Next thing, we have like 1, 2. You see that? I know my drawing sucks, but I hope that it makes sense for you. So we talk about a few things here. We talk about, we have a class called UITableView. We have about UITableView, and we have the UITableViewController. Okay. Now this UITableViewController here, it has the root view of this UITableViewController, because it is controller. Remember, it has the root view is a UITableView, and then inside each of the table view, we have different section like this one, section 2, and then each of the section we have like the row 0, row 1, and then row 2, and this one maybe just have row 0 and then row 1. This maybe just have 1 row. And then from the information of the section and then the row like this, let me use another color. We have the section and the row information. We have here is an index path. So the index path will have the section is 0, 0, and then here we have the is 0, 1, and then here we have 0, 2. This guy, what is the index path of this guy? Yeah, 2, 0. What is the index path of this row? 1, 1. Make sense? Okay. Now, that is mostly all the information that I need to tell you about. There's one more. The last one in TableView, in order to really master this, is how can we have rows and cells in the table view? Now, if you look at, for example, I have this table view, right? It is a table view like this. And if you look at the design of all the rows inside this table view. It is pretty much the same design because we just have we have an image, right? We have an image right here, and then we have the title of the product, and then we have some description of the product like that, right? And we have a separator or something like this. You see that? And that's why in the table view we are going to use something we called a cell prototyped. A prototype cell. A cell prototyped. So this guy is going to the prototype of all the cells, all the rows inside this table view. All the rows in this table view is going to be generated from this cell prototype. Make sense? Now, why do we want to use that? Why do we want to use a prototype cell? A prototyped cell. Gosh, I hate my handwriting on this thing. So, a prototype cell. Why do you want to use a prototype cells? Well, the fact is, you see that, number one, on a screen, especially on an iPhone or even iPad or even a Mac, or even later on you have like a 10,000 inch phone screen, whatever that is, right? There's only that certain space of visible screen. So there's only that certain space of visible screen, which is like something like this, right? Only that visible space. But a table view may have like 10,000 rows, and each row may contain like image, it may contain even videos, it may contain like text, and that could be very bad for us if we just all at once generate these 10,000 rows all at once. And you see this like number 8 or like some weird thing. See this? So each of these rows may contain images or videos, and it means that a lot of data that will be jammed into our memory. But the phone, even if right now the phone is so much memory, it has like 2 or 4 megabytes of gigabytes of memory, there's no doubt that in a few years it will be like 16 gigabyte or 22 or even 100 gigabytes. Who knows about that? But it's still limited in resources, because before, the first version of iPhone, I think, has like 300 something or 500 megabytes of memory, or I think it is 128. It's really slow. And at that time, we don't have like so much images or videos on the phone, but then it increased in 4 gigabytes or even 16 gigabytes. And then we have like tons of videos. And then from videos, we have like 4K videos, we have like 360 video. And then later on, we are going to have like virtual reality or augmented reality. All of those stuff will take a lot of memory. That's why we have to think of a different way to display this table view. And using a prototype cell will help us like that. The idea is the table view is just like this. And then inside this table view, maybe we have a bunch of things inside this table view, right? We have a bunch of cells inside this table view. And we only take the space for the table view that is visible. We only generated these cells that is visible. And then we are going to dequeue, we are going to kind of like put the other cells that is in preparation mode above or below that. Okay? And I will pause it here, and then we'll go now directly into our code, and then we'll do the work first, and then we are going to talk more about this thing. Okay, so let's go into this. We have in the last session, in just last few minutes, we have a Tableview controller like this, right? So let's have a new class here, a new file called a script file, and let's have here is a let's use a new file and Cocoa Touch class, and let's use a subclass of UITableViewController, and then we have the class. Let's call this guy Product TableViewController, and we'll put it over here. We create this guy, and boom. Now, don't be afraid of all of these weird code. We are actually, let's delete this thing. We don't need that. Let's delete the did receive memory warning. You know what? Let's delete all of these code that we are going to have. Delete all of these. Just leave the tail view alone. Okay. The first thing you noticed, it is a subclass of UITableViewController. Right? So, number one, what are our data model? What is our data model? What are the data that we want to display? Yeah, we want to display a bunch of product lines. We want to display a bunch of product lines. Right? Or you know what? Let's keep it simple. Let's have a bunch of products. And let's use our let's go back into the product lines here, and we can get the product lines like this, right? So we have product line dot get product lines, and I only want to use the number 0 like this, the first product line. Cool? The first product line, so that we have a bunch of products, and we const dot product like that, so that we have a bunch of products. Cool? Okay. Now, in order to implement this TableViewController, we are going to need to implement a protocol called UITableView Datasource. UITableView Datasource. So here is what a UITableView Datasource means. Let's go ahead back into our drawing like this, and then let's have a table view. And this tail view has something like that. Okay, so the UITableView Datasource, UITableView Datasource. Okay, and in order to implement this, we have to give it some pieces of information so that the TableView knows how to display your data. Number one, it needs to know how many sections are there in your table view? How many sections are there in your table view? Number two, how many rows? This is a row, okay? This is rows per section do you have? And number three, you have how does a row look like at that specific index path. So number one, we need to tell how many sections in the table view. Number two, we need to tell how many rows in the section so that it can populate the data for each of the section. Number three, we need to tell how each of the rows look like, right? How does this row look like? How does that row look like? So let's implement this guy. So let's have a mark over here. I'm going to have a mark called UITableView Datasource, like this. Okay. And then the first method is called number of sections in the table view. Just typing in and you'll see the number of sections in the table view. And by the way, if you subclass UITableViewController, you must have this override, because the TableViewController by default it's already implementing these guys. We are just override these methods so that we have our custom table view looks and feels. So here we override this guy, and we have to return how many sections are there inside this table view. And by that, we will return, right now, we just want to return 1. Okay, we want to have just 1 section. And then the next one is number of rows in the section. Just typing in number of rows, and then you have this method, press enter. Table view, number of rows in this section, like that. And So this first version of the app, in the first version of the app, I just want to have like our tail view to be like this. We have a tail view, and then we have a bunch of products. I'm sorry. We have like a tail view, and then we have the title of the product. Okay, so something like iPhone. The next thing we want to have like iPad, and then the next thing we have like what's that, iMac, things like that. Okay, and then we have etc. etc. In the next lesson, we are going to have those beautiful design, just like this. Go. So here the number of rows in the section. How many rows in that section? Yeah, I just want to have the number of products in that tail view to be the number of rows in the section, because each of the row is going to be a product. So we return the product dot count. Product dot count. Okay, and the last method, what is that? The last method, what is the last method? What's the last method? How does a row look like? Right, so last method, cell for row at index path. Just typing in cell for row at index path. So here, let's look at this method. This method has tail view cell for row at index path. So this tail view cell row index path, we have to return for it a tail view cell. And the way we're doing that is, let's go back into this dequeuing thing. Number one, we need a prototype cells. We need a prototype cell. And number two here, we need to dequeue a new cell. Number three, we need to return that cell. Make sense? So number one, we need a prototype cell. How do we get a prototype cells? Go back into your main.storyboard, and then this prototype cells, you see this? There's will be a prototype cells right here. Or you can just go into your tail view here, click into the tail view. You see that we have a tail view content is dynamic prototypes, and you have the prototype cells. You can have one prototype cells, or you can have as many prototype cells that you want. Here I just want to use one, so let's use ones right now. Okay, and then let's click into this cell, and then you see that the style here, I want to use the basic style. The basic style is just have one title here. Okay, so now let's go back into the product. Oh, by the way, when we select the cells here, we will have to give an identifier to tell the tail view that, hey, I have this prototype cells and I want it to be the identifier. To identify this cell among other cells in this tail view is, let's say we call this product cells. Okay, the product cells. Let's copy this guy. So that's step number one. We have a prototype cells, right? So we have go back into the product Tableview controller. And then let's go into step number two. We dequeue a new cells. So let cell equals, we call the method called Tableview dot dequeue reusable cell with identifier for this index path. So double click, and then we have the identifier here. Let's use a string, which is our product cells, the cells that we just have. Cool. For the index path, we are going to use this index path. So index path, like this. Okay. And then step number three, we have to return that cells. So return the cell. And finally, let's do cell dot, what is that? And because I want to have like configure the cells, right? But let's do that later. So right now I want to run the app. So let's run the app for the first time and see how it looks like. Let's run the app now. Everything is set up now for us to have the tail view working. So let's see how it looks like. Here we go. And you see the tail view. We have a bunch of cells like these, right? But we didn't have any information yet. So let's have that. Over the cells here, I can set let the product equals to our product, plural, and we subscript here. And I want to know what is the cell at that index path. And then in this index path, okay, when you click into hold command key and click into the index path, you will see that we have the index path here. Okay, and below that, where is that? Gosh, it is a struct, and we can have the index. No, let me find that for you. Okay, I know this is kind of weird. Sorry, index, any index. Oh, okay. So let me just introduce that to you. So the product, I can access to the index path .row to know that, okay, I have that index path, but I want to know the row of that index path. Cool. And then I can do cell title label I think that is text label .text. The text label is the default text label over here, this title that we have, text, and I have to use optional so that training so that it can be nil. And then we have here is product. Let's do title. Cool. And then let's run the app and see how it looks like. So all we did is we get the product inside our products array at that index path row. And then we change the title, the text of the title. Okay? And here we go. Now, we don't have it now because I think that we didn't change this guy, right? So let's change our main storyboard. Go over here, the Tableview controller, and we have to change it over here, the products Tableview controller, the custom class of this product's Tableview controller. Run the app again and see how it looks like. Here we go. Alright, we have an error. What is that error? It says fatal error index out of range. It means that this, and it highlight this, right? So you see that this thing happens because maybe we have it over here. The product line don't get products lines. It returns for us an array of products lines, right? When we access the first one, let's see what's the product line over here. Oh gosh, I forgot to tell you about this product lines. So here we just have to count the iDevices. We count which will return for us a product line, right? And then we count what is that? Inside your product lines, get the product line. We have what is that? Mac, and then software and iPod, right? So we have Mac like this, and then software, and then iPod, and then we have what? We have iCloud and Apple Pay. So iCloud and Apple Pay like that. And let's run the app. Now we should have the product line, the first product line like this. Here we go. Boom. We have the iDevices. We have the even though Apple Watch is not iDevices, but I guess we have 4 rows because inside that we have Apple Watch, iPad, and iPhone and iOS. So that, my friend, is how you do a tail view. Very simple. We have like step number 1 literally is just we have the main storyboard, right? We design our cells, we give it an identifier, and then we go into the product Tableview controller. We create a custom class of UITableView controller, a subclass of UITableView controller. We get some product, which is your data model, and then we implement the UITableView Datasource. This UITableView Datasource, we have to give it the number of sections, the number of rows in the section, and what does a cell contain? What does a row looks like? Now, to test that we do have everything correctly, let's change this thing, get product lines, into like 1. Right, so run the app again. Let's run the app. And then we have the simulator over here. And instead of Apple Watch, we should have MacBooks and those things. And we have more rows, we have those guys. And then how about here, the video load? We can change the title to be Apple Products. Or let's call this Apple Store. And run the app. Okay, we have the title in the view data alone, which will set the title of the navigation bar. Here we go, Apple Store. Alright, my friend, I hope that you enjoyed this lesson about Tableview and TableViewController. We talked a lot about the new concepts, right? We talked about, let's recap a little bit, okay? So we talked about there's a TableViewController, just like a UITableViewController before, but the root view is a UITableView. And then in order to have cells in your Tableview, step number one, you have to have that cell in the storyboard, or we call that a prototyped cells. Number two, you have to implement the UITableView Datasource protocol. That is, you have to provide 3 pieces of information for the Tableview in order to display the data model into your app. Number one, how many sections are there in your Tableview? Meaning how many sections have, like in your phone book, you have section A, B, C, D, E, right? Number two, how many rows are there in that section? Number three, how each of the cell or each of the row looks like. So we have the prototype cells, right? We have to dequeue that cells from kind of like the storyboard into our project, into the app. The reason why we have to dequeue a cells is because there's only a certain amount of cells visible on the screen. That's why the up cells, the cells that we don't see, and the below cells here are not visible yet, are not generated yet in our memory. That's why whenever we want to use it, we have to dequeue. It's kind of like you put that on the queue, right? Or above the queue. So I hope that you enjoy this lesson. I know that there's a lot of new concept, there's a lot of new practices, there's a lot of new frameworks and protocols and methods and functions, those kind of things. It is confusing, I know. It's confusing. The first time, trust me, the first dozen of times where I learned about Tableview, my English was so bad. I was have to doing some projects with Tableview like dozens of times until I really understand it. So if this is the first time for you, that's okay. That's completely fine. It's great that these things are new for you. These things are just sinking in. That's great. In the next few lessons, we are going to deal with those Tableview concepts, the queue cells, the Tableview data source, the number of sections, number of rows, cell for row index path. All of those things, we'll practice it multiple times so that after this course, you are like a master of Tableview. Cool. So let's get ahead in the next lesson. But before we do that, I love to see you are here. So leave me a comment right below this video. Let me know that, hey, just let me know if you have any question. Or number two, just let me know that you are there for me, because I know you watch the lessons, you move on. That's great. I'm honored that I can be your mentor in this journey. But I would love to see you and would love to meet you. So the only way that I know that you are here is you put a comment in the comment section below. Just let me know that, hey Duke, my name is, I'm from somewhere and I'm here, I'm learning this. So I would love to meet you and communicate with you in the comment section. In the next lesson, we talk about how to customize our Tableview cell. So you look at the Tableview cells right now, it's kind of boring. We just have one label. In the next lesson, we're going to have beautiful Tableview cell. I see you in the next lesson in which we're talking about custom Tableview cell. See ya.